days, sometimes weeks, being invisible to enemies who were out to find and kill them, but frequently ended up getting killed themselves. One time it had been a team of 4 homicide detectives in Tampa, Florida. Starkey demanded that they treat this like a real-life combat mission in real-life war. Total silence was imperative. They used hand signals most of the time. If someone had to cough, he did so in his neck rag or in the crook of an arm. Their rucksacks had been packed tight by Sergeant Griffin so that nothing shook or rattled as they walked. The 3 of them had slathered on bug juice, then laid on the camo. They didn't smoke a cigarette all day. No mistakes. Starkey figured that the kill would take place somewhere between Harper's Ferry and an area known as Loudon Heights. Parts of the trail were densely forested there, an endless green tunnel that would be good for their purposes. The trees were mostly deciduous, leafy, no conifers. A lot of rhododendron and mountain laurel. They noticed everything. They didn't actually make camp that night and were careful not to leave evidence that they had been in the woods at all. Brownlee Harris was sent on another scouting mission at 7:30 that night, just before it got dark. When he returned, the sun was gone and darkness had fallen like a shroud over the AT. The woods had a kind of jungle feel, but it was only an illusion. A state road ran about half a mile from where they were standing. Harris reported in to Starkey. "Target 1 is approximately 2 clicks ahead of us. Target 2 is less than 3. Everything's still looking good for us." "I'm pumped." "You're always ready for a hunt and kill," said Starkey. "But you're right, everything's working for us. Especially this friendly, trust-your-neighbor mindset all these recreational hikers have." Starkey made the command decision. "We'll move to a point midway between targets 1 and 2. We'll wait there. And remember, let's not get sloppy. We've been too good for too long to blow it now."
Chapter 45.
A 3/4 moon made the going easier through the woods. Starkey had known about the moon beforehand. He wasn't just a control freak, he was obsessive about details because getting them wrong could get you killed or caught. He knew they could expect mild temperatures, low wind, and no rain. Rain would mean mud, and mud would mean a lot of footprints, and footprints would be unacceptable on their mission. They didn't speak as they moved through the woods. Maybe it wasn't necessary to be so cautious out here, but it was habit, the way they had been conditioned for combat. A simple rule had always been drummed into them. Remember how you were trained, and don't ever try to be a hero. Besides, the discipline helped them concentrate. Their focus was on the killings that would soon take place. The 3 men were in their own private worlds as they walked. Harris fantasized about the actual kills with real-life faces and bodies. Starkey and Griffin stayed very real-time, and yet they hoped that Harris wasn't pulling their chain with his description of the target. Starkey remembered one time Brownlee had reported that the prey was a Vietnamese schoolgirl whom he went on to describe in elaborate detail. But when they got to the kill zone, a small village in the An Lao Valley, they found an obese woman well into her 70s with black warts all over her body. The reveries were cut short by a male voice piercing the woods. Starkey's hand flew up in warning. Hey, what's going on? Who's out there?" the voice called. "Who's there?" The 3 of them stopped in their tracks. Harris and Griffin looked at Starkey, who kept his right arm raised. No one answered the unexpected voice. "Cynthia? Is that you, sweetie? Not funny if it is." Male. Young. Obviously agitated. Then a bright yellow light flashed in their direction, and Starkey walked forward in its path. "Hey," was all he said. "What the hell, you guys Army?" the voice asked next. "What are you doing out here? You training? On the Appalachian Trail?" Starkey finally flicked on his Maglite flashlight. It lit up a white male in his late 20s, khaki walking shorts down around his ankles, a thick roll of toilet paper in one hand. Skinny kid, longish black hair, a day's growth on his face. Not a threat. "We're on maneuvers. Sorry to barge in on you like this," Starkey said to the young man squatting before him. He chuckled lightly, then turned to Harris. "Who the hell is he?" he whispered. "Couple number 3. Shit, they must have fallen behind target 2. "All right, then, change of plans," Starkey said. "I'll take care of this." "Yes, sir." Starkey felt a coldness in his chest and knew that the others probably did too. It happened in combat, especially when things went wrong. The senses became more heightened. He was acutely aware of everything going on, even at the periphery of his eyesight. His heartbeat was strong, even, steady. He loved these intense feelings, just before it happened. "Can I get a little privacy here?" the shitter asked. "You guys mind?" A brighter light suddenly flashed on. Brownlee Harris was shooting another video movie. "Hey, is that a fucking camera?" "Sure is," Starkey said. He was on top of the crouching, shitting man before he knew what was happening. He picked the victim up by his long hair and slit his throat with the K-bar. "What's the woman like?" Griffin turned to Harris, who was still shooting with the handheld camera. "Don't know, you horny bastard. The girlfriend was sleeping this morning, never saw her." "Boyfriend wasn't too bad looking," said Griffin. "So I'm hopeful about the chick. Guess we'll soon find out."
Chapter 46. Sampson and I were riding on I-95 again, heading toward Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. There had been a brutal double murder near there. So far, it didn't make sense to the FBI or the local police, but it made perfect sense to us. The three killers had been there. We hadn't had this much time to talk in a long while. For the first hour, we were cops discussing the murder victims, two hikers on the Appalachian Trail, any possible connection to Ellis Cooper or the victims in Arizona and New Jersey. We had read the investigating detective's notes. The descriptions were bleak and horrific. A young couple in their 20s, a graphic artist and an architect, had their throats slit. Innocence. No rhyme or reason for the murders. Both of the bodies had been marked with red paint, which was why I got the call from the FBI. "Let's take a break from the mayhem for a while," Sampson finally said. We had reached about the halfway point of our ride south. "Good idea. I need a break, too. We'll be knee-deep in the shit soon enough." "What else is going on? You seeing anybody these days?" I asked him. "Anybody serious? Anybody fun?" "Tabitha," he said. "Kara, Natalie, Latasha. You know Natalie. She's the lawyer with HUD. I hear your new girlfriend from San Francisco came to visit last weekend. Inspector Jamila Hughes, homicide." I laughed. "Who told you about that?" John furrowed his brow. "Let's see. Nana told me, and Damon, and Jenny. Little Alex might have said something. You thinking about settling down again? I hear this Jamila is something else. Is she too hot for you to handle?" I continued to laugh. "Lot of pressure, John. Everybody wants me to get hooked up again, get over my unlucky recent past, settle down to a nice life. You're good at it. Good daddy, good husband. That's how people see you. And you, what do you see?" "I see all that good stuff. But I see the dark side, too. See, part of you wants to be old Cliff Huxtable, but part is this big bad lone wolf. You talk about leaving the police department. Maybe you will. But you like the hunt, Alex." I looked over at Sampson. Kyle Craig told me the same thing. Almost the same words. Sampson nodded. "See? Kyle's no dummy. Sick, twisted bastard, but not dumb." "So if I like the hunt so much, who's going to settle down first? You or me?" "No contest. My role models on family are bad ones. You know that. Father left when I was 3. Maybe he had his reasons. My mother was never around much. Too busy hooking, shooting up. They both knocked me around. Beat up on each other, too. My father broke my mother's nose 3 times. "Afraid you'll be a bad father?" I asked. "Is that why you never settled down?" He thought about it. "Not really. I like kids fine. Especially when they're yours. I like women, too. Maybe that's the problem. I like women too much," Sampson said, and laughed. "And women seem to like me." "Sounds like you know who you are, anyway." "Good deal. Self-knowledge is a start," Sampson said, and grinned broadly. "What do I owe you, Dr. Cross?" "Don't worry about it. I'll put it on your tab. I saw a road sign up ahead. Harper's Ferry, 2 miles. A man was being held there for murder. A former Army colonel with no past record. And currently a Baptist minister. I wondered if anyone had seen 3 suspicious-looking men in the area of the murder, and if one of them had been filming what happened. Chapter 47. Sampson and I met with Reverend Reese Tate in a tiny room inside the modest jailhouse in Harper's Ferry. Tate was a slight, balding man with shaped sideburns down to the bottom of his earlobes. He didn't look much like a former soldier. He had retired from the Army in 1993 and now headed a Baptist congregation in Cowpen, South Carolina. Reverend Tate, can you tell us what happened to you yesterday on the Appalachian Trail? I asked him, after identifying who we were. Tell us everything you can. We're here to listen to your story. Tate's suspicious eyes darted from Sampson to me. I doubt he was even aware of it, but he kept scratching his head and face as he looked around the small room. He also looked terribly confused. He was obviously nervous and scared, and I couldn't blame him for that, especially if he'd been set up and framed for a double murder. "Maybe you can answer a few of my questions first," he managed. "Why do you two care about what happened out there on the trail? I don't understand that, or anything else that's happened in the past 2 days." Sampson looked at me. He wanted me to explain. I began to tell Tate about our connection to Ellis Cooper and the murders that had taken place near Fort Bragg. "You actually believe that Master Sergeant Cooper was innocent?" he asked when I had finished. I nodded. "Yes, we do. We think he was framed, set up, but we don't know what the reason is yet. We don't know why, and we don't know who." Sampson had a question. "You and Ellis Cooper ever meet while you were in the Army?" Tate shook his head. "I was never stationed at Bragg. I don't remember a Sergeant Cooper from Nam. No, I don't think so." I tried to remain low-key. Reese Tate was an uptight, buttoned-down, and formal man, so I kept our conversation as non-threatening as I possibly could. "Reverend Tate, we've answered your questions. Why don't you answer a few of ours? If you're innocent of these murders, we're here to help you out of this mess. We'll listen, and we'll keep an open mind." He looked thoughtful for a moment before he spoke. "Sergeant Cooper, he was judged guilty, I assume. Is he in prison? I'd like to talk with him." I looked at Sampson, then back at Reese Tate. "Sergeant Cooper was executed in North Carolina recently. He's dead." Tate shook his head in a soft, low arc. My God in heaven. I was just taking a week off, giving myself a break. I love to camp and hike. It's a carryover from my days in the Army, but I always loved it. I was a Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout in Greensboro. Sounds kind of ridiculous under the circumstances. I let him talk. The Eagle Scout in him needed to, get this out. "I've been divorced for 4 years. Camping is my only decent escape, my release. I take off a couple of weeks a year, plus a few days here and there when I can grab them." "Did anybody know you were planning the trip to the Appalachian Trail?" "Everyone at our church knew. A couple of friends and neighbors. It wasn't any big secret. Why should it be?" Sampson asked. "Did your ex-wife know?" Tate thought about it, then shook his head. "We don't communicate very much. I might as well tell you. I beat Helene up before we divorced. She may have drove me to it, but I hit her. It's on me, my fault. No excuse for a man ever to strike a woman." "Can you tell us about yesterday? Go through as much of what you did as you can remember," I said. It took Tate about 10 minutes to take us through the day in detail. He said he woke up about 7 and saw that the morning was fogged in. He was in no hurry to get on the trail, so he had breakfast at camp. He started hiking by 8:30 and covered a lot of ground that day. He passed 2 families and an elderly couple along the way. The day before, he'd seen a mother and her 2 daughters and hoped to catch up with them, but it didn't happen. He finally made camp about 6.